For almost my whole life, I fell for the lie that atheists were reasonable, logical, rational people. Why did I fall for it? Because I used to believe what people said about themselves without actually examining their lives and analyzing their arguments. When I became an adult, I realized the liberating truth. Atheists are neither reasonable, nor rational, nor logical. Now, atheists do have a version of reason, rationality, and logic, but it is limited and faulty. Here's why. Atheists often say things that sound reasonable, but if you actually think about it and apply your God-given mind, the arguments they make fall apart because they're revealed as being arbitrary.
Do you really think that the creator of this magnificent edifice of the universe, the expanding universe, the galaxies, he really couldn't think of a better way to get rid of the sins on this one little speck of dust than to have himself tortured?
Edifice, noun. 1. Building, especially a large or massive structure. 2. A large abstract structure.
So, an edifice, the universe, being large, gets the adjective of magnificent, but Earth gets the title of little speck of dust?
One little speck of dust.
Why, that speck is as small as the head of a pin.
One little speck of dust.
He talks to a dust speck. He's out of his head.
One little speck of dust.
And as for your dust speck, ha! That we shall boil.
One little speck of dust.
I'm convinced. Richard Dawkins is a Dr. Seuss villain.
Dawkins hears a who. High up in the treetops, with feathers all sleek, Professor Dawkins gave Horton a beak.
A mind such as mine cannot help but deride your silly obsession with dust specks,
he cried.
The cosmos is teeming with particles, friend. They swirl without purpose, beginning to end. For billions and trillions times more, each mote is as empty as all that came before.
But Horton stood steady, his trunk held up high, and answered with kindness without a reply of sigh.
Perhaps, dear Professor, you think me a fool, but I'll guard this small speck, for it's my one rule.
Dawkins just laughed with a skeptical roar.
You trumpet for nonsense! What's science for? Your care for this dust mote is muddled at best. It's random, it's pointless, it fails every test.
Yet Horton kept listening, his great ears so wide.
For voices are whispering softly inside. A whole tiny city, alive in that place, with families and children, a whole breathing race.
Oh nonsense, oh drivel,
the eagle declared.
No proof can be offered, no logic is spared. You've millions of motes drifting by every tree. Why elevate this one with moral decree?
But Horton persisted, both patient and true.
I'll guard it because it's the right thing to do. Though specks may be many, this one I can see. And duty to small things belongs, too, to me.
The eagle grew cross and confused by it all.
Your elephant logic is terribly small. The universe vast is a grand cosmic sea. So why should one speck mean so much under thee?
Then, faintly, it happened. A cry rang out clear, tiny and trembling.
We're here! We are here!
The who's all together, their voices combined, proved Dawkins was wrong in the strictness of mind. The eagle went silent, his feathers askew. He muttered,
Well, Horton, perhaps it is true. Though countless the dust motes that drift and that fly, at least this small speck has a voice and a cry.
And Horton, still smiling, just nodded his head.
For caring is never a folly,
he said.
No matter how tiny, no matter how small, a person's a person, the worth of them all.
If you could possibly persuade me that there was some kind of creative force in the universe, there was some kind of physical, mathematical genius who created everything, the expanding universe, devised quantum theory, relativity, and all that. You could possibly persuade me of that. But that is radically and fundamentally incompatible with the sort of God who cares about sin, or the sort of God who is interested, who has the slightest interest in your private thoughts and wickednesses and things like that. surely you can see that a God who's grand enough to make the universe is not going to give a tuppenny cuss about what you're thinking about and your sins and things like that.
So if God created physics and mathematics, then he can't care about sin and morality?
Why? 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 Why?
This isn't rational. This is just Richard throwing out his own preconceived notions and biases. Richard has had various life experiences, and he has seen and heard and learned various things from various sources, and has so decided to take this patchwork of ideas and concepts and form who he is. But it doesn't have to be this person. At any time, Richard can choose to activate his mind and realize his beliefs are arbitrary. A man learns many skills and trades and schools of science. He learns how to build vehicles. He learns how to cut down trees and work with lumber. He clears out an area of dense forest and decides to build a house there. He learns how to make concrete, how to create blueprints for a house, learning architecture. He learns how to build, how to create glass for the windows, how to make mortar, how to create hammers and nails and screws, how to mix chemicals to create safe, non-toxic paint, how to create smoke detectors, how to generate and wire electricity, and so many more things. Why does he do this? So that he can get married and father children. Children that he will teach and discipline and nurture and love and pass on his wisdom. Why is it so strange to Richard that a being who created mathematics and physics and all the laws of the universe also cares about morality? The answer is, there is no answer. It's just Richard's own delusion and irrational belief.
So you think that morality is not important?
Of course I don't think morality is not important. I'm
Well,
a human
it
being.
sounds like you're saying
No,
it isn't important.
I'm a human being, and I live in a society of human beings, and within a society of human beings, morality is of course important. But we are one of billions of planets on a huge scale.
Atheists are intimidated by numbers, or at the very least, they want to intimidate you with numbers. Stop falling for it. Numbers don't have to be scary.
Are you a salesman?
Right.
Oh. What do you sell?
Eight.
Eight's like the number 8.
And a cosmic God who bothers about this kind of human scale is not the kind of God that is compatible with a scientific view of the universe.
God is infinite, and to him all minds and all thoughts are exposed. Note Richard's word choice, bothers. But how can an eternal and infinite and all-powerful being be bothered by anything? Richard is making one of the oldest mistakes in the book, applying human limitations to God. To God, making a planet or a star is no different from making a speck of dust. It's only humans who think there's a difference because of their own constraints and limitations.
And a cosmic God who bothers about this kind of human scale is not the kind of God that is compatible with a scientific view of the universe.
A God that bothers about human scale is incompatible with a scientific view of the universe?
Why? 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 Why?
Does the king of a nation not have the right to care about his children's behavior? Does the president of a university have to ignore his family's vice and virtue? Why? Oftentimes, there is the stereotype of a man being busy at work, not having time to spend with his family. But once again, this is human negligence and a human limitation, not having anything to do with some principle or rule, but just human weakness and lack of sense. A man looks after a zoo, making sure everything is running smoothly. All the animals are fed and cleaned. All the enclosures are intact and safe for all employees. All the animals are healthy. All the finances are taken care of, etc. Then he comes home and tends to his ant farm. I don't know how much time humanity has, but let's imagine that humanity colonizes space and an entire empire is born with a single family as the head. The patriarch of the family goes out and attends to all the politics and finances. He decides court cases involving disputes between planets, galaxies, solar systems. He moves resources from one corner of the galaxy to another. He commands militaries composed of endless people. He directs the course of all scientific endeavors, knowing all that has been discovered and being an expert in all fields and disciplines. He decides the fate of the universe. He is as close to being God as a man could be without getting a new divine body. Then he goes home to spend time with his family and teaches his son, nurturing, admonishing, exhorting, and disciplining him. There is nothing strange about this in my eyes, but there is some sort of disconnect in Richard's eyes.
Morality is, of course, important, but we are one of billions of planets on a huge scale.
Here is why these types of atheist arguments are unreasonable. They are based on human physical limitations, not reason.
God can't care about morality because there are lots of planets.
Okay, but is God allowed to care if there is only one planet? Is he allowed to care if only one planet has life on it? Is he allowed to care if he can be in all places at once? If God is petty for caring about Earth when there are billions of planets, then does that mean he can't look after any planets? Think about the sheer, utter stupidity of this argument. God can't care about us because there are billions of other planets in this vast cosmic sea. But wait, can't all those other planets say the same?
You can't judge us because there are billions of planets.
How clever atheists are! What an amazing defense!
You can't judge us because of them, and you can't judge them because of us. We did it, guys. We defeated God in the court of law. Introducing the new Richard Dawkins Get Out of Hell Free card. With this, your sins, transgressions, iniquities, vices, mistakes, oversights, negligence, laziness, apathy, and all faults are completely overlooked. Why should God care about your own personal sins when there are billions of other people and billions of other planets out there? Apply now.
Except God doesn't see the world as men do. He doesn't care about numbers or sizes.
Behold, the nations are like a drop from a bucket, and are accounted as the dust on the scales. Behold, he takes up the isles like fine dust.
To put the argument in purely physical terms, let's say humans colonized billions of planets. Actually, let's say humans colonized all planets, terraforming them to be habitable. Would we be allowed to monitor and police those planets to stop injustice? Yes. So why can't God? What if we chose the most wise, selfless, and virtuous man to be the single police officer over all planets, and gave him the technology to be at all places at once? Like, I don't know, if he could somehow transcend all time and space and solve all problems, disputes, crimes, everything all at once. Would we be allowed to do so? Why or why not? What are the rules here?
Every spirit possesses wings. This is a common property of both angels and demons, so they are everywhere in a single moment. The whole world is as one place to them. It is easy for them to know everything that is done over the whole extent of the world and to report it.
Do you guys know where the term cosmos comes from?
Short version. Cosmos comes from ancient Greek kosmos, which first meant order, good order, arrangement, then ornament, adornment, and eventually the ordered universe. It's from the verb kosmeo, to arrange, order, adorn.
The cosmos is there for ornamentation and adorning and showing off God's infinite power. Yes, you are supposed to be dazzled and overwhelmed by the sheer immensity of it all, and you are supposed to think you are tiny, but you are not supposed to think your existence is insignificant, or that you have a license to do evil because God is too limited to pay attention to you, or that evil on the planet doesn't matter if there are billions of planets. And what's worse for the atheists, this principle wouldn't change even if every single planet were inhabited. Now, I don't think there is life on any other planet, but even if all planets were full of other humans, what would that change? How would that give you an excuse?
Why did you disobey me?
Well, God, you can't blame me, because there are billions of other planets and they each have billions of people living on them.
So you thought your actions didn't matter because humans existed on other planets? So if I ask them, would they say that their actions didn't matter because you existed? So if enough planets and enough people exist, then personal responsibility and morality just goes out the window.
Why do you care about what I did when there are so many other people out there?
Despite seeing my power, you still chose to have such a low opinion of me, thinking I didn't see and I didn't care. Why would I give you laws if I didn't care? Why would I warn you about the day of judgment if there was no such day? I keep track of every speck of dust, every particle in existence. Why did you think I wasn't keeping track of you?
This even applies to real life. Just because there are millions of people in a country doesn't mean the law stops being in effect or that the government stops caring about crime. Now, yes, you do have a point if you say,
when there's too many people, it becomes nearly impossible for the government to catch and prosecute every single lawbreaker.
True, but God's government isn't limited like human governments are. God is watching, and his angels are also watching. Maybe you were slick enough to avoid getting caught and punished by your parents. And maybe that led you to becoming arrogant and outfoxing a human government. But it will end when you die and you realize someone was watching all along. Funnily enough, but also entirely appropriate, these arguments about God unwilling or incapable of tracking every person was also brought up by the pagan Romans.
But the Christians, moreover, what wonders, what monstrosities do they feign, that he who is their God, whom they can neither show nor behold, inquires diligently into the character of all, the acts of all, and in fine, into their words and secret thoughts, that he runs about everywhere and is everywhere present. They make him out to be troublesome, restless, even shamelessly inquisitive, since he is present at everything that is done, wanders in and out in all places, although being occupied with the whole, he cannot give attention to particulars, nor can he be sufficient for the whole while he is busied with particulars.
But do you think that size is the measure of importance? Incidentally, on a logarithmic scale, you're about halfway between the atom and the universe. So if God thinks in terms of logarithms, your point falls, I think.
I mean, this is in a sense an emotional argument we've come into now. And
I don't think so at all.
I want to if I were going to respect a God, it would be the kind of God the sort of God that Carl Sagan might have worshipped, not the sort of medieval God who fusses about sin, the obsession with sin and righteousness and sort of, I keep coming back to this word petty, and I stand by it.
Richard is just showing his preferences and biases, but it doesn't change the truth. You can have whatever preferences you have, but your preferences don't dictate reality. Wisdom is conforming yourself to the truth, and not expecting the truth to conform to you. God is truth, not us. If Richard was going to respect the God, it would be his own version of God, one that doesn't care about righteousness and sin and wickedness. It's one thing for Richard to stay in his lane and keep his arguments confined to the story of evolution, but when he ventures outside to talk about God bothering and being petty for taking care of his creation, he is in over his head.
And a cosmic God who bothers about this kind of human scale. I keep coming back to this word petty, and I stand by it.
Since Richard is talking about the possibility of a cosmic God, I ask, is the Creator allowed to take care of his creation? Is he allowed to reward virtue and punish vice? Is a superior being allowed to help an inferior being? Richard is saying that a cosmic God shouldn't bother himself to care about his creation because there are billions of planets. But what if there is no life on those billions of planets? What if Richard learns after he dies that only Earth had life on it, so there was no reason for God to bother with the other planets, thus completely deflating Richard's entire ideology and all of his arguments? Richard Dawkins has stated that there is injustice in the world, and that morality is important, but that his version of God is not allowed to care about injustice and morality. Why? Why are only humans allowed to care about morality? If humans care about morality, then shouldn't God care more about morality? Why are imperfect beings allowed to care about something but a perfect being not allowed to care about something because it's petty and beneath him? But if he is eternal and infinite, aren't all things beneath him? Think about it. To an eternal and infinite being, caring about anything would be petty, according to Richard's logic.
Morality is important, but billions...
There are so many preconceived notions working against Richard and standing as a wall, blocking him off from truth and reason. Number 1. If God created something, why can't he manage it and take care of it? Number 2. If God created humans with morality, doesn't that mean that morality comes from God and that he is moral and can get involved? 3. A big problem with Richard is that he doesn't see God as king and father who is deeply integrated in his family's life, but instead as an intruder, an outsider who is meddling and being petty. Richard has been estranged from his maker. When you believe in the universe and life being a random accident, that carries over into how you see families and fathers. Why would God care about random and small humans when he has a whole universe to manage with billions of planets? Unless he created them with purpose and plans.
For I know the plans I have for you, says the Lord, plans for welfare and not for evil, to give you a future and a hope.
Humans may produce new human beings by chance and accident, but not God. You should look at humans from the perspective of God, and not God from the perspective of humans. Richard has a sci-fi, Star Trek version of intelligence in God, where a perfect being has to be all about logic and science and data and numbers, and things like emotion and intimacy and personal closeness are all obsolete concepts and signs of imperfection. This is just a modern invention out of touch with truth and reality. A perfect being of perfect reason and logic and intelligence can also have the utmost care for justice and righteousness, and indeed he does. Atheists are unreasonable because they play by severely limited physical rules and not on the playing field of true reason and logic. They are trying to limit the infinite and eternal God to this limited physical plane, and that never ends well for anyone.
She gave this name to the Lord who spoke to her. You are the God who sees me. For she said, I have now seen the one who sees me.
Morality is important, but billions...
Do not say, I shall be hidden from the Lord, and who from on high will remember me? Among so many people I shall not be known, for what is my soul in the boundless creation?
Morality is important, but billions...
A man who breaks his marriage vows says to himself, who sees me? Darkness surrounds me, and the walls hide me, and no one sees me. Why should I fear? The Most High will not take notice of my sins. His fear is confined to the eyes of men, and he does not realize that the eyes of the Lord are 10,000 times brighter than the sun. They look upon all the ways of men and perceive even the hidden places.
What really makes Richard's arguments more devious and why he will have a lot to answer for on Judgment Day is that while Richard still believes in the existence of evil and injustice, many people have taken his arguments and run further with them to deny the existence of morality and justice. Richard believes there is evil, but a cosmic God who cares about us little humans is petty and unscientific because there are billions of planets. But many atheists believe that the existence of billions of planets even disproves morality and humans having any responsibility for making moral decisions. There is a whole evil, nihilistic subculture bolstered by Richard and the arguments of Christopher Hitchens and other atheists. These atheists are the supports for many evil people.
It is said that the body of the dragon is covered with scales, to keep it from being quickly penetrated with shafts. In like manner, the whole body of the devil, that is, the multitude of the reprobates, when reproved for its iniquity, endeavors to excuse itself with whatever evasions it can, and opposes, as it were, with some scales of defense, that it may not be transfixed with the arrow of truth. For whoever, when reproved, seeks to excuse rather than to lament his sin, is covered, as it were, with scales, when assailed by holy preachers with the sword of the word. He has scales, and therefore the sword of the word has no way of reaching his heart. For the spiritual sword is kept by the hardness of the flesh from being plunged into him.
In other words, Richard has one foot in Christianity and recognition of the problem of evil, but his other foot is in trying to be a self-sufficient atheist intellectual.
We are culturally a Christian country. I call myself a cultural Christian. I'm not a believer, but there's a distinction between being a believing Christian and being a cultural Christian. And so, I love hymns and Christmas carols, and I sort of feel at home in the Christian ethos. I feel that we are a Christian country in that sense. It's true that statistically the number of people who actually believe in Christianity is going down, and I'm happy with that. But I would not be happy if, for example, we lost all our cathedrals and our beautiful parish churches. So I count myself a cultural Christian. I think it would matter if we substituted any alternative religion. That would be truly dreadful. I choose my words carefully. I mean, if I had to choose between Christianity and Islam, I choose Christianity every single time. I mean, it seems to me to be a fundamentally decent religion, in a way that I think Islam is not.
He wants to promote morality and justice, but he doesn't want to go too far with it. He is a Christian in terms of his recognition of evil and injustice. He just thinks God is petty for getting involved in human affairs because there are billions of planets.
Morality is important, but billions...
Alrighty then.
Morality is important, but numbers, guys, those pesky numbers, they get in the way of morality.
Richard Dawkins is really a cartoon character, isn't he?
Young Richard sat in the middle of his toy-strewn room, blocks and books scattered like galaxies in chaos. His mother opened the door, gasped, and said,
"Richard, this is a disaster. Clean it at once."
Richard adjusted his tiny spectacles and replied,
"Mother, the universe itself is immeasurably vast, filled with billions of stars and planets in untidy disorder. My mess is but a small echo of cosmic reality."
She blinked, hands on her hips, and snapped.
Well, the cosmos may be infinite, but this room is finite, and I have to walk through it.
Richard frowned, picked up a sock with grave reluctance and muttered,
"So much for natural selection favoring entropy."
All these conclusions are very tentative, but minimally they must involve this. For a few milliseconds, really, of cosmic time, our species has lived on one very, very small rock in a very small solar system that's a part of a fantastically unimportant suburb in one of an uncountable number of galaxies. And that's not just because we know so little about it. It's because what we know about it that's essential doesn't seem as if it's the intended result brought about by a divine, benign creator who loves every single one of us living as we do on this tiny rock in this negligible suburb of the cosmos.
Why?
He says these conclusions are tentative.
All these conclusions are very tentative.
Tentative means
1. Not certain or fixed, provisional. 2. Not fully worked out or developed. 3. Hesitant, uncertain.
This is an example of pure, unfiltered, atheist insanity. And I pray more people wake up and see through this. The man just condemns and refutes himself. Listen, if something is tentative, that means it is uncertain and likely to change. And it doesn't have to minimally involve anything. Scientific discovery can bring up entirely new ways of looking at the world. To a fleshly mind, that is. And what was seen as essential yesterday will be thrown out today. Every theory can be completely thrown out and replaced.
Our species has lived on one very, very small rock in a very small solar system that's a part of a fantastically unimportant suburb in one of an uncountable number of galaxies.
Who gives atheists the right to say what is and isn't important? My goodness, as I was writing this script, I had to keep going back and adding more and more and more points. Everything atheists say just crumbles like a house of cards the more you think about it. If there are billions and 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 billions, billions of planets, and if only one of those planets had life on it, then automatically, reasonably, logically, rationally, that planet would become the most important place in all of space.
Hello? Anybody home? Hey, think McFly, think.
The place that has life is automatically the most important place in space. What's more important than life? What criteria are atheists using here?
Oh, that planet is made of gold.
Who cares?
Oh, that planet has a pretty color.
Who cares?
Oh, that planet is... Oh, I give up.
What? Tell me, what is the criteria for what is important?
But clover by clover by clover, he found that the one that he sought for was just not around.
Oh.
And by noon, poor old Horton, more dead than alive, had picked, searched, and piled up 9 billions 5. Then, on through the afternoon, hour after hour, till he found them at last, on the 3 billions flower. "My friends," cried the elephant, "tell me, do tell! Are you safe? Are you sound? Are you whole? Are you well?"
Why don't atheists love and value life? Why do they hate life so much? Why do they have such a self-destructive and self-sabotaging mindset?
And that's not just because we know so little about it.
Oh, so you admit that you know very little, but still enough to make authoritative, absolute statements? Gotcha.
Doesn't seem as if.
What a flaky statement. It does seem as if to me and many other people.
It's the intended result, brought about by a divine, benign creator who loves every single one of us.
He has given us the gift of life, bringing us into existence out of nothing.
In the presence of the God in whom he believed, who gives life to the dead and calls into existence the things that do not exist.
I don't know what is more loving than to bring someone into existence from nothing. Have you ever contemplated what a gift and blessing it is to live, to exist? Existence is a gift that we can never truly be thankful for enough. Even an eternity is insufficient to express enough gratitude for being given life. Why does something being small, or one of many, make it insignificant? This is a logical fallacy. It's unreasonable. There are many small and rare things that have great value to us. Diamonds, microchips, flakes of gold, saffron, seeds, truffles, and much more are very small, rare, and yet highly valuable.
Sperm cells and egg cells are very small, but they turn into full-sized people. A human is roughly 39 trillion times larger than a sperm cell. If a sperm cell were the size of a grain of rice, a human would be the size of a skyscraper.
Atheists try to scare people with numbers, and for some reason people fall for it. It seems people have some innate fear of large numbers and large spaces, or at least the unthinking people do. Something being small does not make it insignificant. Also, there being little of something does not make it less important. Please, for the sake of reason and logic, look at gold. Does gold being a tiny percentage of Earth's mass make it insignificant? No, quite the opposite. The rarer something is, the more valuable it is, not less.
Mr. Wonka?
So shines a good deed in a weary world.
A single good person is worth more than an army of evil people.
Do not desire a multitude of useless children, nor rejoice in ungodly sons. If they multiply, Do not rejoice in them unless the fear of the Lord is in them. Do not trust in their survival, and do not rely on their multitude, for one is better than 1,000, and to die childless is better than to have ungodly children. For through one man of understanding a city will be filled with people, but through a tribe of lawless men it will be made desolate.
God is communicating to us what is truly valuable and what He seeks after: faith, obedience, righteousness, justice, mercy.
Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they will be filled. He who is slow to anger is better than the mighty, and he who rules his spirit than he who takes a city. Behold, to obey is better than sacrifice, for I desire mercy and not sacrifice.
In God's eyes, mathematics, physics, the universe are all a means to an end, to have a family that He can share existence with. If that was your goal, then someone's righteousness, morality, virtue, obedience, faithfulness would be the most important things. Math isn't alive. Physics is not alive. Space isn't alive. Science isn't alive. Humans are alive. The human soul is precious. Free will is paramount in creation. Obedience and disobedience are of great importance. Hypothetically speaking, what would you prefer? To have an endless amount of space to fly around in, but not a single living being besides yourself? Or a single room with another person who was your equal? Everything in this life works together to reveal the truth. How do I know that all this talk of space is just that, empty talk? Because when people talk about open-world video games, they often mention how the worlds are large, but empty. Vast areas with nothing to do.
The game is being compared to Skyrim, Grand Theft Auto, and Red Dead Redemption. But this feels, pardon me, next level because those worlds are large, but largely empty. Open worlds are often large but barren, giving a player a vast space to explore with nothing of consequence in it. Exploration starts to feel cheap as players uncover the same items over and over again, or watch as their actions do little to change the game world. Vast, open, and mostly empty universes aren't so amazing anymore. Open universes need stuff in them. They need content. They need gameplay. Planets 7 through 9 are heartbreaking. Within 10 planets, you'll realize you've seen all you're going to see. I honestly still find it to be incredibly boring. It feels like there's nothing to discover. It's still a dozen different planet textures with different hues and saturations. No town or cities. The entire gameplay loop boils down to farming money to buy new ships to farm money with. The game just feels empty.
But when it comes to the cosmos, suddenly it's...
Ooh, truly we are specks who don't matter.
But wait a second. You would never accept this from a video game creator. Those who do play video games complain that video games lack meaningful choices and activities. Most players would much rather have a small world with lots of meaningful interactions rather than a large world with no engaging content. And wouldn't you know it, our world fits that criteria. Not that the Earth is even small from our perspective. We have tons of meaningful interactions with real living, breathing people, and our choices have long-lasting consequences, just like you would expect from a quality video game. What's the problem? You would much rather be alone and exploring endless empty planets? Hypothetically speaking, if you were an eternal and infinite being, why exactly would the physical size of something even matter? Atheists, how big does something need to be before it can officially be considered important by your arbitrary perceptions of the world? Is there a scientific consensus on how massive something needs to be before it is considered important? If a person were as large as a planet, would we then say they are important? Oh wait, they would still be a speck. If a person were the size of the Milky Way, could we then scientifically designate them as important? Wait, that's still not big enough. If only we could use reason instead of infantile arguments to make our points, then we wouldn't be in this dilemma.
Much more happiness, truth, beauty, and wisdom will come to you that way.
Happiness, truth, beauty, and wisdom are things we perceive with our minds, our inner rational faculty. You could say that beauty is perceived through the eyes, but doesn't every single fairy tale and children's book teach that true beauty is within?
But then, one winter's night, an old beggar woman came to the castle and offered him a single rose in return for shelter from the bitter cold. Repulsed by her haggard appearance, the prince sneered at the gift and turned the old woman away. But she warned him not to be deceived by appearances, for beauty is found within.
Yes, the same story that has appeared time and time again, which you should have embraced wholeheartedly by now, is that the outer appearance is oftentimes deceiving and you need to search deeper.
But the Lord said to Samuel, "Do not look on his appearance or on the height of his stature, because I have rejected him. For the Lord sees not as man sees. Man looks on the outward appearance, but the Lord looks on the heart."
Yes, sometimes a person can be physically beautiful and spiritually beautiful and shining with virtue and righteousness. There's no law that says a good person can't be good looking. But how many times have we seen beautiful people act wickedly? The moral: don't assume a beautiful person is good or evil, and don't assume an ugly person is good or evil. Test them. I highly encourage you to check out this video on my brother's channel, where he covers how Christ really looked in his first advent.
Posting it again. How profoundly Dr. Carl Sagan captured the fleeting beauty of human existence and the immeasurable preciousness of our pale blue dot, adrift in the vast cosmic sea.
Look again at that dot. That's here. That's home. That's us. On it, everyone you love, everyone you know, everyone you ever heard of, every human being who ever was, lived out their lives. The aggregate of our joy and suffering, thousands of confident religions, ideologies, and economic doctrines, every hunter and forager, every hero and coward, every creator and destroyer of civilization, every king and peasant, every young couple in love, every mother and father, hopeful child, inventor and explorer, every teacher of morals, every corrupt politician, every superstar, every supreme leader, every saint and sinner in the history of our species lived there on a mote of dust suspended in a sunbeam.
This is a fallacious way of looking at things, accepted by people who have an agenda. The agenda is to demean humanity, to make everything seem pointless and inconsequential. Humanity invented satellites. Then we take a picture of Earth, and then we say,
"Our planet looks like a speck of dust from this distance."
But from our human point of view, things are clear and present. If you have a spiritual perspective, then Carl's words actually show the genius of God's design, how God has allowed and made room for so many types of humans on this planet. This planet has facilitated so many different types of souls, all endowed with a free will.
The Earth is a very small stage in a vast cosmic arena.
Even a broken clock is right twice a day. Did you guys know that statements like this actually agree with the views of early Christians?
Note that the place where the donkey was found tied was a village, and a village without a name. For in comparison with the great world in heaven, the whole earth is a village.
You see, there is a vast world out there that we can't even see right now, but it's not composed of Star Wars aliens or Star Trek civilizations, but rather spiritual beings.
In fact, there did exist something, as it seems, even before this world which our mind can attain by contemplation, but which has been left uninvestigated because it is not adapted to those who are beginners and as yet infants in understanding. This was a certain condition older than the birth of the world and proper to the supramundane powers, one beyond time, everlasting, without beginning or end. In it, the creator and producer of all things perfected the works of his art, a spiritual light befitting the blessedness of those who love the Lord, rational and invisible natures, and the whole orderly arrangement of spiritual creatures which surpass our understanding and of which it is impossible even to discover the names. These fill completely the essence of the invisible world. The angels, dominions and powers, although they began to exist at some time, were already in existence when the visible world was created.
Think of the rivers of blood spilled by all those generals and emperors so that, in glory and triumph, they could become the momentary masters of a fraction of a dot. Think of the endless cruelties visited by the inhabitants of one corner of this pixel on the scarcely distinguishable inhabitants of some other corner. How frequent their misunderstandings. How eager they are to kill one another. How fervent their hatreds.
Atheists often forget their position and slip in Christian holdovers, at least in their minds. If there is no God, why even care about blood spilled? It's just nature being nature. See my videos on Christopher Hitchens for an abundance of points on this topic. Carl is describing evil, but evil is an inherently religious idea.
Our posturings, our imagined self-importance, the delusion that we have some privileged position in the universe, are challenged by this point of pale light. Our planet is a lonely speck in the great enveloping cosmic dark.
Actually, evidence is coming out that we do indeed have a privileged position in the universe.
Is this Copernicus coming back to haunt us? That's crazy. We're looking out at the whole universe. There's no way there should be a correlation of structure with our motion of the Earth around the Sun, the plane of the Earth around the Sun, the ecliptic. That would say we are truly the center of the universe, unquote.
This is not right. There is evidence that this cosmological principle, this idea that we're not in any special place in the universe, there's something wrong with that.
That whole cosmic microwave background is pointing to us, this tiny little space in the universe, and that happens to be where we live.
I frankly try to keep an open mind about what this ultimately means, because I still don't know.
It would be nice if atheists and scientists in general had more humility. You would think that scientists would be the most humble and quiet of people, but they are all too eager to make grandiose statements that are repudiated in the decades to follow. Every time we discover something new, we only learn how much more there is to learn. The world is not getting simpler as time goes on. It only gets more and more complex.
Let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
Darwin wrote The Origin of Species in 1859, published it in 1859. He had an idea of the cell as being quite simple, correct?
Yeah, everybody did.
Okay. If he thought of the cell as being a Buick, what is the cell now in terms of its complexity by comparison?
A galaxy.
If Darwin thought a cell was, say, a mud hut, what do we now know that a cell is?
More complicated than a Saturn V.
So what is in a cell as far as we know now?
A world that Darwin never could have imagined.
The more we learn, the deeper the rabbit hole goes, and the more we realize just how little we know. Science should be an extremely humbling field, but instead, it's filled with egomaniacs.
In our obscurity and all this vastness, there is no hint that help will come from elsewhere to save us from ourselves.
There is a hint, and more than a hint. You just choose not to believe it.
The Earth is the only world known so far to harbor life. There is nowhere else, at least in the near future, to which our species could migrate. Visit, yes. Settle, not yet. Like it or not, for the moment, the Earth is where we make our stand. It has been said that astronomy is a humbling and character-building experience.
Clearly, astronomy is not a humbling experience, because these people are full of pride.
There is perhaps no better demonstration of the folly of human conceits than this distant image of our tiny world. To me, it underscores our responsibility to deal more kindly with one another, and to preserve and cherish the pale blue dot, the only home we've ever known.
Carl refutes himself. He admits that Earth is the only world to harbor life. That's amazing. That's a sign that we are indeed special. It doesn't get any more special than that. Also, notice how he says, at least in the near future. as if he's implying that in the future we may find another planet that can support life.
It tells us we're nothing special. As Carl Sagan has put it, we live on an insignificant planet of a humdrum star, lost in a galaxy tucked away in some forgotten corner of a universe in which there are far more galaxies than people. Whether we call it the Copernican principle, or the cosmological principle, or the mediocrity principle, it all boils down to the same thing. We're nothing special. There are no special places or directions in the universe. No center, no edges, no up, no down, no left or right. For almost 500 years, as we have looked further and further out into the cosmos, everything has seemed to confirm this principle over and over again. And yet, we have never seen anything like Earth. A baby's smile, the finale of a great symphony. The lights of all of the cities of our Earth shining out into space. We observe these things nowhere else in all this vastness. We have yet to find evidence of other intelligent life, or any other life for that matter. If we really are nothing special, then where is everybody?
Activate your minds, atheists, and think, what would God need to do in order to show you how special you are? You are on the only planet that supports life, check. Earth and the universe are perfectly fine-tuned for life, check. You are a human and not a fly or a slug, check. You are told that God came down in a human body and suffered to offer you redemption and salvation, check. You are born in a time period where you have free access to scripture, hundreds of early Christian writings, all from the palm of your hand, and you were on the planet. Check. And despite all this, you refuse to budge, and instead choose self-hatred and self-destruction. One more minor point I'd like to make is, have you noticed how these people are portrayed in their promotional media? Here's a picture of an older Carl Sagan. He is depicted as a giant man sitting on top of the earth, wearing a nice suit, showing elegance and class and status and sophistication.
Thus says the Lord, heaven is my throne, and the earth is my footstool.
Carl here is using the earth as his chair. Now you may think I'm stretching this too far, but I think there is significance in how people depict themselves and how they want to be seen. Carl and other atheists want to be seen as masters of the cosmos. And I just wonder if this has anything to do with their animosity towards God. I wonder if there is any envy in their hearts. One of the ways you know that atheists don't truly believe in their own ideology is that they say things that reveal their true inner thoughts.
The late astronomer Carl Sagan, this cosmos is all that is, or ever was, or ever will be, close quote.
I have detected an inconsistency in your argument. If you say that the Earth is a speck, then that makes you less than a speck, or a speck of a speck. If that is the case, then what authority and right does a speck have in authoritatively stating all the things that have been, are, and will be? You are committing an egregious mistake in severely overstepping your bounds. Specks should know their place and stay within their boundaries.
What is this? This isn't reason and rationality. This is prideful and solipsistic men pretending to be God. Don't atheists have a conscience that tells them to recognize arrogance? Even if you don't have faith in God, shouldn't you at least recognize that you are nothing? I don't get it. How do atheists both tell us that we are apes on an insignificant speck of a planet, but also that we get to define all that has been and will be? Shouldn't we realize that we barely know anything? Where is the humility? Where is the humble scientist just trying to discover the truth? All we have are outrageously prideful and self-absorbed people stating things they can't possibly know. Christopher Hitchens criticized religion by stating that it makes people terribly abject and then terribly solipsistic.
It's somewhat worse than I was saying before about the way that religion makes people first be terribly abject and then terribly solipsistic.
First, definitions.
Abject, of a person or their behavior, completely without pride or dignity, self-abasing, solipsistic, very self-centered or selfish.
Christianity has something for everyone, all walks of life and all levels of intelligence. Although intelligence itself is a fluid and changing concept, I've seen many people I considered intelligent make very basic childish mistakes, and I've seen people I considered unintelligent say wise things. The truth can be explained very simply or with very complex arguments, but many people have attempted to explain things in eloquent language throughout the centuries, and have made a bit of a mess. So I will go with the early church's method of explaining things using simple parables, because this tradition actually comes from God.
Again, the kingdom of heaven is like a dragnet that was cast into the sea and gathered some of every kind, which when it was full, they drew to shore. And they sat down and gathered the good into vessels, but threw the bad away. So it will be at the end of the age. The angels will come forth, separate the wicked from among the just, and cast them into the furnace of fire. There will be wailing and gnashing of teeth.
To answer Christopher, I will use two parables. 1. A rich, powerful man has a son. The son makes mistakes and is disciplined. Discipline is humiliating, but that doesn't change the fact that, if he endures in his obedience to his father, he will have a great inheritance when he is of age, and the maturity that comes with age and good instruction and discipline.
My son, do not regard lightly the discipline of the Lord, nor lose courage when you are punished by him. For the Lord disciplines him whom he loves, and chastises every son whom he receives. It is for discipline that you have to endure. God is treating you as sons. For what son is there whom his father does not discipline? If you are left without discipline, in which all have participated, then you are illegitimate children and not sons. Besides this, we have had earthly fathers to discipline us, and we respected them. Shall we not much more be subject to the Father of spirits and live? For they disciplined us for a short time at their pleasure, but he disciplines us for our good, that we may share his holiness. For the moment, all discipline seems painful rather than pleasant. Later it yields the peaceful fruit of righteousness to those who have been trained by it.
Number 2. An athlete is training for a big contest. He puts himself through grueling and humiliating exercises. Everyone who looks at him laughs, saying he is torturing himself for no reason. When he does push-ups, they sit on him, mocking him and making it harder for him, but it only increases his strength and zeal.
It's somewhat worse than I was saying before about the way that religion makes people first be terribly abject and then terribly solipsistic.
But can't this be applied to atheists as well? First, they say we're the result of mindless, random processes, that we came from apes, that we live on a speck. But they also make absolute, authoritative statements about things we can't possibly know.
One of these things is not like the other. One of these things just doesn't belong. Can you tell which thing is not like the other before I finish my song? Now look very carefully, because one of these things just doesn't belong here. Well, if you guessed this thing is not like the other, if you guessed this thing just doesn't belong, if you guessed this thing is not like the other, well then, you're absolutely correct.
I have discovered another inconsistency. You say, our posturings our imagined self-importance, the delusion that we have some privileged position in the universe, are challenged by this point of pale light. But you also say, the Earth is the only world known so far to harbor life. There is nowhere else, at least in the near future, to which our species could migrate. So you claim that Earth being in a privileged position in the universe is a delusion, but Earth is the only planet known to harbor life. Doesn't that mean Earth is special? Or does your argument rest solely on position and not quality? Even so, if Earth is not in a privileged position, then can't it at least be privileged in its unique qualities for the nurture of life? Also, you say that humans can't colonize other planets in the near future, so you leave room for the possibility of humanity eventually being able to colonize other planets. So what if humans eventually colonize space? And what if humanity colonizes all planets that are capable of being colonized? Does humanity then become important and valuable? Or will the argument then shift to something else without bringing in size or numbers?
And a cosmic God who bothers about this kind of human scale.
If human beings colonize all the planets that can be colonized, is Richard's cosmic God then allowed to bother about humanity? How much of space does humanity have to colonize before this cosmic God can care? What are people looking for in space? Is it not life? Intelligent life? So, if only Earth has life on it, then that makes Earth the most important thing, right?
You don't know that there aren't other life forms out there. Space is vast. There surely have to be other life forms out there.
But wait a second. I thought science is based on observable evidence, not wishful thinking. I don't think any other planet besides Earth is inhabited, but even from a secular mindset, we don't have any evidence of any other life out there. So by default, Earth is the most important place in space, and that makes humanity the most important thing in space.
I talked to Sagan one more time that year, when it seemed that scientists had found evidence of ancient life on Mars. He was, as you'd expect, skeptical. It's important to be cautious because we could be fooled, he said. 4 months later, in December of 1996, he died. He'd been right to be cautious. The life on Mars thing turned out to be wrong.
Let's say this picture represents all space. Atheists say we're delusional if we think we are in a privileged position. Okay, but what does a privileged position look like? Do we have to be in the center in order to be privileged? Why or why not? Can't things not in the center still be privileged? Okay, ignoring evidence that we may be in the center, let's say we're actually over here. What does that change? If we are the only living and rational beings in all of space, doesn't that mean Earth is the most important place in space? And even if you say Earth isn't in a privileged position, can we at least say humans are privileged to be on Earth? You know, atheists get away with saying a lot of things because no one ever calls out the terms. What does privileged mean in the context of space? You know, at a feast, at a large dinner table, you have the host sitting in the most important place, and whoever sits closer to him is more privileged. But how do you apply this concept to all of space?
Now he told a parable to those who were invited, when he marked how they chose the places of honor, saying to them, "When you are invited by anyone to a marriage feast, do not sit down in a place of honor, lest a more eminent man than you be invited by him. And he who invited you both will come and say to you, 'Give place to this man,' and then you will begin with shame to take the lowest place."
Where is the head of space? Where is the tail? Where is front and where is back? If we are unimportant, then what does important look like in space? See, when you try to reason using the physical world, and you bring in the sizes and numbers of things, nothing really makes sense. It's all just silly. But let's say some extra insane atheist says,
No, Earth isn't special, humans aren't special. There's actually this place over here where strange anomalies are happening, and this is privileged, and this is special, and it's not happening anywhere else in space.
Okay, but aren't you using your mind, your rationality, your intelligence to make a judgment about some place in space being privileged, or important. That place doesn't say that about itself. You, the living being, are saying that. Unless you want to get even crazier and say that we don't even know what being alive even means, and space could be alive, and actually there is no such thing as life, we just are. According to atheists, we are from stardust after all, so really we are not any different from stars and planets and all of space, and nothing really matters, la 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 la. No, I'm not joking. I have heard people making all sorts of arguments. My point is that when you back people into a corner and they don't want to admit they have no foundation to stand on, they will retreat into all sorts of arguments. Need I remind you that all this is because of self-hatred?
It seems to make it special, but we don't like being special.
If we are in a privileged position and the universe is fine-tuned for life, and there is a creator, then that means he has the right to create rules for us. If he has the right to create rules for us, then that means we can break those rules. If we can break those rules, then he can punish us for breaking those rules.
And you know what that means.
It's up to you, viewer, if you want to follow them or stand with reason. You don't have to hate yourself. You can choose to have peace with God and let the long war come to an end.
Therefore, since we are justified by faith, let us have peace with God through our Lord Jesus Christ.
I keep coming back to this word petty, and I stand by it.
You know what word I keep coming back to? Arbitrary. Atheists are arbitrary. Ancient pagans attacked early Christians for many of the same reasons that modern atheists attack Christianity.
Why do you speak about things you can't possibly know? The cosmos is eternal. It's never going away. What? Because they threaten conflagration to the whole world, and to the universe itself with all its stars, are they meditating its destruction? As if either the eternal order constituted by the divine laws of nature would be disturbed, or the league of all the elements would be broken up, and the heavenly structure dissolved, and that fabric in which it is contained and bound together would be overthrown.
The more things change, the more they stay the same.
What has been will be again. What has been done will be done again. There is nothing new under the sun.
If you allow yourself to get swept up in this madness, then are you not self-condemned? As a Christian, I believe in the things that God has revealed to us and the early church extensively wrote about.
We are proposing to examine the structure of the world and to contemplate the whole universe, not from the wisdom of the world, but from what God taught his servant when he spoke to him in person and without riddles.
Yes, there are billions of objects in space, with not much going on. So what does it matter? Why is a big object or a large space more important than a small object or a small space? What even is big and small in the context of eternity and infinity? If you were an eternal and infinite being, wouldn't your whole perception of big and small be completely different than a limited human constraint to a small physical space? Put another way, all physical space is small compared to the intellectual space, the realm of rationality. Atheists can't be reasonable because their reason is limited by the five senses, whereas true, pure reason is able to go beyond the senses.
As to the question of height, are we to consider ourselves to be tall just because we tower a little over the earth? Are we not ashamed to be thought of as like to God merely because we are taller than serpents or other creeping creatures, or even than deer, sheep, or wolves? In that respect, how much taller are elephants and camels in comparison with us? Sight is important to us in order to enable us to behold the things of the world and to have knowledge of what is not reported by any person but is grasped by our sense of sight. How significant, in fact, is this power of sight? Because of it, we may be said to have the likeness of God, who sees all, observes all, comprehends our hidden emotions and searches into the secrets of our hearts. Am I not ashamed to admit that it is not in my power to see parts of my body? What is in front of me I can see. but I am unable to see what is behind me. I have no view of my neck or of the back of my head, and I cannot see my loins. In like manner, what avail is our sense of hearing if we cannot either see or hear what is only a short distance away? If walls should intervene, both sight and hearing are impeded. Furthermore, our bodies are fixed and enclosed in a narrow space, whereas all wild animals have a wider range and are also swifter than men. The flesh, therefore, cannot be made to the image of God. This is true, however, of our souls, which are free to wander far and wide in acts of reflection and of counsel. Our souls are able to envisage and reflect on all things. We who are now in Italy have in mind what seems to pertain to affairs in the East or in the West. We seem to have dealings with men who dwell in Persia. We envision those who have their homes in Africa, if there happen to be acquaintances of ours who enjoy the hospitality of that land. We accompany these people on their departure and draw near to them in their voyage abroad. We are one with them in their absence. Those who are separated far from us engage us in conversation. We arouse the dead even to mutual interchange of thoughts and embrace them as if they were still living. We even go to the point of conferring on these people the usages and customs of our daily life. That, therefore, is made to the image of God, that is perceived not by the power of the body, but by that of the mind. It is that power that beholds the absent and embraces in its vision countries beyond the horizon. Its vision crosses boundaries and gazes intently on what is hidden. In one moment, the utmost bounds of the world and its remote secret places are under its ken.
Sagan and Berlinski, two quotations. The late astronomer Carl Sagan, "This cosmos is all that is, or ever was, or ever will be," close quote. David Berlinski, Sagan is hardly alone. Some form of materialism has become a contemporary orthodoxy, close quote. You have to tell us what you mean by materialism.
What I meant.
What you meant?
Yeah. Oh, it's been a long time since I wrote those words, but I cherish them over the span of decades. Materialism is an ill-defined term. We all know that. I mean, the manifest meaning of materialism is like something solid, something enduring, something that counts as an object, a material object, has extension, mass, durability, and so on. But the minute we say that, we restrict the world of material objects to the countable objects. The table is countable. There's one of them. There could be two. But does mud count as part of the materialist panorama? I mean, how many muds are there in Fiesole? That's not a question that obviously admits of an answer. So from the first, the doctrine of materialism, it's not compromised, but certainly it's not very, very clear. The rudiment of materialism seems to me the primordial concept of an object, a physical or a material object. And that's completely impregnated with the natural numbers. They go together. You cannot imagine an object without its numerical identity. But if the two are necessarily associated, if anything that counts as an object counts as a numerical object, has some necessary numerical identity, the numbers are not material objects. What are they doing in a materialist scheme? It seems inexorable, inevitable, irrefrangible. And from the very first moment one says, I'm a materialist and extremely proud of being a materialist, as so many people would say. I just believe things as they are. Well, it's not a position that lends itself to an enormous degree of lucidity.
Imagine if you had all your 5 senses turned off. You couldn't see, hear, smell, taste, or touch anything. Would you all of a sudden not be able to think and reason? No, in fact, you may even be able to reason more purely. God created our souls and put us in these bodies as a learning and testing ground. We learn about spiritual things from the physical things that we encounter. However, ultimately, we have to go beyond this limited physical world, because there is a reality and a whole world which existed before our world, which is much more massive, for lack of a better word, and infinitely more important. If your argument is, I can't see it and therefore it doesn't exist, then you have failed at using reason.
I'm a human being, and I live in a society of human beings, and within a society of human beings, morality is, of course, important. But we are one of billions of planets on a huge scale. Who bothers about this kind of human scale?
Our species has lived on one very, very small rock in a very small solar system that's a part of a fantastically unimportant suburb in one of an uncountable number of galaxies, living as we do on this tiny rock in this negligible suburb of the cosmos.
Our posturings, our imagined self-importance, the delusion that we have some privileged position in the universe, are challenged by this point of pale light. Our planet is a lonely speck in the great enveloping cosmic dark.
So, what happens to a human mind that is fed on atheist junk food for all of its life? Well, I've seen a lot of foul things written and said by atheists, so I won't post that here. But the result is that you get a lot of people who believe life has no meaning and value and that morality and individual choices are inconsequential. Maybe they will try and do good actions. I'm certainly not saying that all or even most atheists are completely depraved. They still have the conscience that God gave them implanted into them after all. But they embrace this attitude of nothing really mattering, and they don't strive to pursue moral excellence. One of the ways you know that atheism is a religion is that it fulfills many of the same things that they claim religion fulfills for other people.
Religion is the opium of the masses.
How about if people believed in a God of infinite lovingness and kindness and forgiveness and generosity, sort of like the modern day God? Why spoil it for them? Why not just let them have their fun and enjoy it?
I mean, I don't want to spoil anything for anybody. I write a book, people can read it if they want to.
So, atheists say that religion is a drug for the people and that it is a source of comfort. But then we see that atheism and big numbers and large spaces are a source of comfort that they use as a crutch to endure this life.
But it can't be that what feels good is what we should believe, because all sorts of deception lies down that road.
I believe that it is a liberating thing to free yourself from primitive superstition.
So every time an atheist is feeling stressed out or their God-given conscience is bothering them, they inject a little
billions
into their veins, and suddenly the anxiety and feelings of guilt and shame fade away for a while.
Friend, it looks like life is getting you down. Here, have some billions.
Billions.
When I watch things like that or just think about the universe, all my problems and anxiety goes away for a moment because I realize that nothing really matters. We are so small, no need to worry about anything. In the end, we are just dust. We are the universe. Everyone and everything is the same. I sound like a hippie, but I love that stuff.
Billions.
I was thinking the same thing. I am going to watch this like a habit. At least once a day, but for sure, try a few times per day. When issues arises, I just want to slip into daydream mode and play this out to remind myself, this is nothing.
Billions.
No, you're absolutely right. We are made out of the universe. We are the universe. If we all united together, we could control anything in a positive way. I agree. We are sent to out places for a reason the universe wants us to achieve. Who knows? We may have been gods in our past lives.
Billions.
You are spirit, trapped in a human biosuit, living on an alien-controlled prison.
Billions.
What he just said is backwards, homie. Be honest with yourself, be in quietude long enough, and forgive yourself. Then everyone else, cause they don't know better. All of us are born into this show for the masses. Peace.
Billions.
That's why I just try to be happy and do what makes me happy, while helping others to be a little bit happy too. Cause even if we all are space dust, and at the end just nothing, the only thing that makes sense is live for being happy. Or that is what I think at least. Yeah, it's very hippie. my way of thinking too. My anxiety gets worse because eventually nothing will exist because atoms decay, so there will be no matter in the universe and it will just be a void and nothing will ever happen and it will stay that way forever, rendering time meaningless for the first time ever. Whenever my anxiety kicks in, I like to watch those kind of videos. It reminds me that nothing matters, really. I used to carry pictures of the universe in my pencil's case at school, so when I was stressed out or bored, I could remind me what life is really all about. Lesson here is, stop taking life so seriously. Enjoy it. Seriously.
Atheists try to dazzle people with numbers and overwhelm people with the sheer scale of space. But have you seen how much is going on inside a cell? That's what happens inside a single cell in your body. How many cells do you have? Tens of trillions. You have universes and galaxies inside of you. If you were to ask me what is more amazing, more vast, more wondrous, space or a single cell in your body, I wouldn't know what to say. And it's only going to get worse. Worse for atheists, better for Christians, as more and more is discovered about just how complex everything is. No amount of time and randomness could have produced this. Accept the truth or perish. God has done this partially to show us just how arbitrary the arguments made by mockers and scoffers are. Don't let yourself be self-condemned. Atheist arguments are meant to dazzle and deceive, not impart you with truth. Everything is a speck, everything is also infinitely complex and massive. All the cosmos is a speck. A single human cell is a cosmos. Please activate your reason and don't be fooled by arbitrary arguments regarding numbers and sizes and percentages. You choose whether you'll be fooled by the arguments or whether you will stand strong in the faith. You matter. Your life matters. Your choices matter. This world was created for you and not for itself. Things do not exist for their own sake, but for God's sake, and for you to make use of. Wood, gold, stone, water, animals, plants are for you to use. God has created a training ground for you to learn and grow, and He very much cares for your well-being and moral choices.
You will find that the world was not devised at random or to no purpose, but to contribute to some useful end and to the great advantage of all beings. It is truly a training place for rational souls and a school for attaining the knowledge of God. Through visible and perceptible objects, it provides guidance to the mind for the contemplation of the invisible.
The human being, the human soul, and human will are of great importance. God is looking for people who can rule over their wills and bodies like kings, recognize their weakness, bend their necks low, and acknowledge their Creator and obey His laws.
The ox knows its owner, and the donkey its master's crib. But Israel does not know, my people do not understand.
That is precious in His sight. A man who can recognize his Maker and worship Him and follow His commandments is worth more than countless stars and planets.
The end of the matter, all has been heard. Fear God and keep His commandments, for this is the whole duty of man. For God will bring every deed into judgment with every secret thing, whether good or evil.